The morning sun cast long shadows across the Naval Special Warfare Training Compound in Coronado as Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell stepped out of her rental car. The sound of her boots hitting the asphalt seemed louder than usual, mixing with the distant crash of waves from the Pacific Ocean. She adjusted her uniform one final time and picked up her deployment bag, knowing that hundreds of eyes would be watching her every move in the coming weeks. Sarah had fought for 3 years just to get this opportunity. The Navy SEALs had only recently opened their doors to women, and she was among the first group attempting to earn the coveted Trident pin. At 28, she had already proven herself as a Navy diver and explosive ordnance disposal specialist, but nothing had prepared her for the scrutiny she would face here. The training facility buzzed with activity as her fellow candidates arrived. Most were men in their early 20s, fresh from other military units and eager to prove themselves. Sarah noticed how conversations stopped when she walked by, how groups of trainees would whisper and point in her direction. She had expected this reaction, but it still stung more than she wanted to admit. Commander James Rodriguez, the training officer, gathered all 43 candidates in the briefing room. His weathered face showed the marks of 25 years in special operations, and his reputation for being both fair and brutally honest was well known throughout the Navy. He scanned the room, his eyes pausing briefly on Sarah before continuing his assessment of the group. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to basic underwater demolition and SEAL training," Rodriguez began, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had seen combat in 3 different theaters. "Over the next 24 weeks, we will test every aspect of your physical, mental, and emotional strength. Roughly 80% of you will not complete this program." The room remained silent as Rodriguez continued his briefing. He explained the phases of training, from physical conditioning to combat diving to land warfare. Each phase would eliminate more candidates, and only those who demonstrated exceptional performance in all areas would earn the right to join one of the most elite fighting forces in the world. After the briefing, Sarah found her assigned barracks room and began unpacking her gear. Her roommate had not yet arrived, giving her a few moments of quiet to process what lay ahead. She pulled out a worn photograph of her father, Master Chief Petty Officer Robert Mitchell, who had served as a Navy SEAL for 15 years before retiring. He had died in a training accident when Sarah was 16, but his example had inspired her to pursue a military career. The first week of training focused on physical assessments and basic military skills. Sarah had always been athletically gifted, but SEAL training pushed every candidate to their absolute limits. The daily routine began at 4:30 in the morning with a 5-mile run along the beach, followed by hours of calisthenics, swimming, and obstacle coursework. During the initial physical screening test, Sarah had to complete a series of timed events including a 500-yard swim, maximum push-ups and sit-ups in 2 minutes each, and a timed run. She finished the swim in the top 15% of her class and exceeded the minimum requirements for all other events. Several male candidates who had been making jokes about women in the SEALs failed to meet the standards and were dropped from the program. Master Chief Petty Officer Tony Valdez served as the lead instructor for physical training. A veteran of 4 combat deployments, Valdez had initially been skeptical about women joining the SEALs, but he prided himself on treating all candidates equally. During Sarah's first week, he watched her performance carefully, looking for any signs of weakness or special treatment. Mitchell, front and center, Valdez called during a particularly challenging workout session. The entire class had been doing burpees for 20 minutes, and several candidates were struggling to maintain proper form. Sarah stepped forward, sweat dripping from her face but her posture still strong. "You think you're special because you're the only woman here?" Valdez asked, his voice loud enough for everyone to hear. "No, Master Chief," Sarah replied firmly. "I think I'm here because I earned it, just like everyone else." Valdez studied her for a moment, then nodded slightly. "Drop and give me 50 push-ups." "Perfect form." "If I see you break form even once, the whole class starts over." Sarah immediately dropped to the ground and began her push-ups. Each repetition was executed with textbook precision, her body maintaining a straight line from head to toe. The rest of the class watched in silence, some hoping she would fail so they could rest, others beginning to develop a grudging respect for her determination. After completing all 50 push-ups without breaking form, Sarah jumped back to her feet and returned to position. Valdez said nothing, but Sarah caught a brief nod of approval before he moved on to torture the next candidate. The psychological pressure began almost immediately. Anonymous notes appeared in Sarah's locker questioning whether she belonged in the program. During meals, she often found herself eating alone as other candidates seemed reluctant to associate with her. Some of this isolation came from genuine uncertainty about how to interact with a female teammate, but much of it reflected deeper doubts about women serving in combat roles. 3 weeks into training, the first major challenge arrived in the form of Hell Week. This 5-day period tested candidates' ability to function under extreme sleep deprivation, physical exhaustion, and constant mental pressure. Many considered it the defining moment of SEAL training, where candidates either proved they had what it took or were broken by the relentless demands. Sarah had spent months preparing mentally for Hell Week, knowing that her performance during these 5 days would largely determine how her fellow candidates and the instructors viewed her. She understood that any sign of weakness would be magnified and used as evidence that women did not belong in the SEALs. The week began on Sunday evening with a surprise wake-up call at 11 o'clock. Instructors stormed through the barracks blowing horns, shouting orders, and throwing gear around. Candidates had 5 minutes to get dressed and report to the grinder, the large concrete area where much of their physical training took place. For the next 5 days, the candidates would get perhaps 4 hours of sleep total while enduring constant physical and mental challenges. They would carry heavy boats over their heads, run endless miles in the sand, perform countless calisthenics, and complete complex tactical exercises. All of this would happen while instructors screamed at them, played loud music, and created as much confusion and stress as possible. By Wednesday morning, the original class of 43 had been reduced to 28. Candidates had quit for various reasons. Some could not handle the physical demands, others broke mentally under the constant pressure. Sarah had watched several men who had initially questioned her presence ring the bell that signified their withdrawal from the program. During a particularly brutal boat carry exercise, Sarah found herself grouped with 4 male candidates who had been among the most vocal critics of women in the SEALs. The 5-person team had to carry a heavy inflatable boat over their heads while running through soft sand for 3 miles. The exercise was designed to build teamwork and trust, as the boat could only be managed effectively if all 5 people worked together. 2 miles into the run, one of Sarah's teammates began to struggle. Petty Officer 2nd Class Mike Thompson was a former Marine who had been making crude jokes about women in combat since the first day of training. Now, exhausted and dehydrated, he was beginning to fall behind and causing the boat to tip dangerously to one side. Sarah could see that Thompson was in real trouble. His face had turned pale, and he was stumbling more with each step. The instructors were watching carefully to see how the team would respond to this challenge. Some candidates in previous classes had been known to abandon struggling teammates in order to save themselves. Without hesitation, Sarah shifted her position to help support Thompson's side of the boat. The additional weight strained her already exhausted muscles, but she managed to compensate for his weakness while encouraging him to keep moving. Her actions allowed the team to maintain their pace and complete the exercise without anyone being dropped from the program. That evening, as the candidates tried to grab a few minutes of rest between exercises, Thompson approached Sarah. His earlier arrogance had been replaced by something resembling respect, and he struggled to find the right words to express what he was feeling. "Mitchell, I owe you an apology," he said quietly. "What you did out there today, that was solid. I've been wrong about a lot of things." Sarah looked at him for a moment before responding. "We're all here for the same reason, Thompson. We all want to earn that trident. Maybe it's time we started acting like a team." Thompson nodded and extended his hand. "You've got my respect and my support. Anyone who has a problem with you being here is going to have a problem with me." Word of Sarah's actions during the boat exercise spread quickly through the remaining candidates. The instructors had also taken note of her performance, particularly her willingness to sacrifice her own comfort to help a struggling teammate. This kind of selfless leadership was exactly what they looked for in potential SEALs. By Thursday night of Hell Week, only 19 candidates remained. The constant physical and mental stress had revealed the true character of each person, and Sarah had consistently demonstrated the qualities that made an effective special operator. She had not asked for any special treatment, had not complained about the conditions, and had repeatedly shown that she was willing to put the mission and her teammates ahead of her own comfort. The final challenge of Hell Week came on Friday morning with a complex exercise that combined underwater navigation, small unit tactics, and emergency medical procedures. Teams of 4 candidates had to swim to a designated point offshore, locate and retrieve a simulated casualty, and then fight their way back to the beach while under fire from instructors using blank ammunition and smoke grenades. Sarah was assigned to lead one of the teams, a responsibility that would have been unthinkable just a week earlier. Her teammates now looked to her for guidance and trusted her judgment completely. As they prepared their equipment and reviewed the mission plan, there was no discussion about her gender or whether she belonged with them. The exercise went perfectly. Sarah's team executed their mission with precision and teamwork that impressed even the most skeptical instructors. They retrieved their casualty ahead of schedule and fought their way back to the beach using textbook small unit tactics. When they finally reached safety, they were exhausted but triumphant. As Hell Week officially ended that Friday afternoon, the 19 surviving candidates stood in formation on the grinder. They had endured 5 days that tested every aspect of their character and ability. Each had proven that they possessed the mental toughness, physical strength, and teamwork skills necessary to continue in the program. Commander Rodriguez addressed the group, his voice showing a rare note of approval. Congratulations on completing Hell Week. You have demonstrated that you have what it takes to potentially become Navy SEALs. But, remember, this is just the beginning. The real test of your abilities is yet to come. As the candidates were dismissed to get their first real sleep in 5 days, several of them gathered around Sarah. These men, who had started the week with serious doubts about women in the SEALs, now spoke of her as one of their own. She had not just survived Hell Week, she had thrived under the pressure and emerged as a natural leader. That night, as Sarah finally lay down in her own bed for the first time in 5 days, she allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. She had passed the first major test, but she knew that even greater challenges lay ahead. The instructors and her fellow candidates were beginning to accept her, but she would need to continue proving herself every single day. The journey to earn her trident was far from over, but Sarah had taken a crucial step forward. She had shown that she belonged among the elite, and that gender was no barrier to excellence in the most demanding military training in the world. The foundation for everything that would follow had been laid during those 5 brutal days, and she was ready for whatever came next. The months following Hell Week brought new challenges that tested Sarah in ways she had never imagined. Phase 2 of SEAL training focused on combat diving and underwater operations, skills that would be essential for any missions involving maritime infiltration or underwater demolitions. The training took place in the cold waters off San Diego, where visibility was often poor and currents could be treacherous. Sarah had always been a strong swimmer, but combat diving required an entirely different set of skills. She had to learn to navigate underwater using only a compass and her own sense of direction, plant explosive charges on simulated enemy targets, and conduct reconnaissance missions while remaining completely undetected. The margin for error was essentially zero, as any mistake could result in mission failure or death. Lieutenant Commander Patricia Hayes served as the diving phase instructor, bringing 15 years of experience in underwater operations to the program. Hayes was one of the few women who had achieved senior leadership positions in naval special warfare, and her presence provided Sarah with a role model who understood the unique challenges she faced as a female candidate. During their first private conversation, Hayes was direct about the obstacles Sarah would continue to encounter. The diving phase eliminates about 20% of the remaining candidates, she explained as they walked along the pier where much of the training took place. The physical demands are different from what you experienced in Hell Week, but the mental pressure is even more intense. Hayes paused to watch a group of candidates practicing emergency ascent procedures in the diving pool. You've proven that you can handle the obvious challenges, Mitchell. The question now is whether you can maintain that level of performance when the pressure becomes more subtle and persistent. The diving training began with classroom instruction on underwater physics, decompression tables, and equipment operation. Sarah excelled in the academic portions of the program, often scoring among the top candidates on written examinations. However, she knew that intellectual understanding would mean little if she could not perform effectively in the water under stress. The first major underwater exercise involved a simulated ship attack in San Diego Bay. Teams of 4 divers had to swim nearly 2 miles underwater, attach practice charges to a decommissioned vessel, and then extract to a pickup point without being detected by surface patrols. The entire operation had to be completed in darkness, using only basic navigation equipment. Sarah was assigned to team with Petty Officer First Class David Kim, Seaman Recruit Marcus Johnson, and Petty Officer Second Class Mike Thompson. Thompson had become one of her strongest supporters since their experience during Hell Week, and the team had developed an effective working relationship during previous training exercises. The mission briefing took place at 3 in the morning in a darkened classroom near the waterfront. Intelligence indicated that the target vessel was anchored in 40 feet of water, protected by regular security patrols both on the surface and underwater. The team would have to approach from the north, avoiding known patrol routes, and complete their mission within a 4-hour window. As the team prepared their equipment, Sarah double-checked every piece of gear with the methodical precision that had become her trademark. Her diving suit, breathing apparatus, navigation tools, and practice explosives were all inspected multiple times. She had learned that attention to detail could mean the difference between success and failure in special operations. The swim to the target took nearly 3 hours, with Sarah serving as the primary navigator for her team. Using only a compass and her knowledge of local currents, she guided the group through the dark water while maintaining the precise timing necessary to avoid security patrols. The navigation proved more challenging than expected, as strong currents kept pushing the team off course. Halfway to the target, Johnson began experiencing equipment problems with his breathing apparatus. The malfunction was not immediately life-threatening, but it was causing him to consume oxygen at a much faster rate than planned. Sarah quickly assessed the situation and made the decision to share her emergency oxygen supply with Johnson while continuing the mission. This decision meant that Sarah would have to complete the remainder of the operation with reduced oxygen reserves, leaving little margin for error or delays. Thompson offered to abort the mission and return to base, but Sarah insisted they could still accomplish their objectives if they moved efficiently and avoided any unnecessary risks. The team reached the target vessel with just enough time to complete their mission within the assigned window. Sarah and Kim attached the practice charges to the ship's hull while Thompson and Johnson maintained security. The placement of the charges required precise work in complete darkness, as the explosives had to be positioned at exactly the right locations to achieve maximum effect. As they prepared to leave the target area, Sarah noticed that one of the charges had not been properly attached and was beginning to drift away from the hull. Recovering the charge would require an additional 10 minutes underwater, time that she could not afford given her reduced oxygen supply. However, leaving the charge behind would result in mission failure and could potentially compromise the security of the exercise. Without hesitation, Sarah signaled to her teammates that she was going after the drifting charge. Thompson tried to stop her, pointing to his watch to indicate that they were running out of time, but Sarah was already swimming toward the loose explosive. She knew that mission success had to take priority over personal safety, a principle that was fundamental to special operations. Sarah reached the drifting charge and quickly reattached it to the ship's hull. However, the additional exertion in cold water had increased her oxygen consumption even further, and her gauge now showed critically low levels. She had perhaps 5 minutes of breathing gas remaining, and the swim back to the extraction point would take at least 15 minutes. The team immediately implemented emergency procedures, with Johnson sharing his remaining oxygen through a buddy breathing system while they began the long swim back to safety. The procedure required Sarah and Johnson to share a single breathing apparatus, taking turns every few breaths while maintaining their underwater navigation and avoiding detection by security patrols. The extraction swim became a test of both technical skill and mental discipline. Sarah had to maintain precise navigation while managing her breathing, monitoring Johnson's condition, and ensuring that the team stayed together in the dark water. Any mistake could result in the team becoming lost, running out of oxygen, or being discovered by the exercise opposition force. With less than 2 minutes of oxygen remaining, Sarah's team finally reached the extraction point where a support boat was waiting. As they surfaced and climbed aboard, Sarah was exhausted but triumphant. They had completed their mission successfully despite multiple equipment failures and challenging conditions. Lieutenant Commander Hayes was waiting on the support boat to debrief the exercise. She had been monitoring the team's progress through underwater communication systems and was aware of the challenges they had faced during the mission. Her expression revealed little as she reviewed their performance with each team member. "Mitchell, walk me through your decision to go after that loose charge," Hayes said as the boat headed back to base. "You were already operating on reduced oxygen reserves, and that choice put both you and your teammate at additional risk." Sarah considered her response carefully before answering. "Ma'am, mission success required that all charges be properly placed. I assessed that we could recover the charge and still extract safely using emergency procedures. The risk was manageable given the importance of completing our objectives." Hayes nodded slowly. "And if you had run out of oxygen during the recovery operation? Johnson would have had to choose between saving you and completing the mission. That's not a position you want to put your teammates in." "Yes, ma'am, but leaving the charge behind would have meant certain mission failure. Sometimes you have to accept calculated risks to accomplish the objective. That's what special operations is about." The debrief continued for another 30 minutes, with Hayes challenging every decision the team had made during the operation. Sarah's choice to pursue the loose charge became a case study in risk assessment and decision-making under pressure. Some instructors felt she had been reckless, while others praised her commitment to mission success. Over the following weeks, the diving phase training became increasingly complex. Sarah and her fellow candidates learned to conduct underwater reconnaissance missions, plant sophisticated explosive devices, and coordinate with surface forces during amphibious operations. Each exercise built upon previous skills while adding new layers of complexity and stress. The academic requirements also intensified, with detailed study of enemy naval capabilities, underwater demolition techniques, and maritime intelligence gathering. Sarah continued to excel in the classroom portions of training, often helping her teammates understand complex technical concepts during their limited study time. One particularly challenging exercise required the candidates to conduct a night infiltration of a heavily defended harbor facility. The scenario involved swimming past multiple security checkpoints, gathering intelligence on enemy ship movements, and extracting without being detected. The entire operation had to be completed in less than 6 hours, with teams of 2 divers working independently. Sarah was paired with Petty Officer Kim for this exercise, and they spent several days studying satellite photographs and intelligence reports about their target. The harbor facility was protected by both electronic sensors and human patrols, requiring precise timing and careful route planning to avoid detection. The mission began at midnight with Sarah and Kim entering the water from a point nearly 5 miles from their target. They would have to navigate through busy shipping channels, avoid commercial vessel traffic, and penetrate the harbor's outer security perimeter without triggering any alarms or attracting attention from patrols. The first part of the swim proceeded smoothly, with Sarah navigating through the shipping lanes while Kim monitored for surface traffic. However, as they approached the harbor entrance, they discovered that the intelligence reports had been incorrect about patrol schedules. Security boats were conducting random sweeps of the area, making their planned infiltration route much more dangerous. Sarah quickly developed an alternative plan that involved approaching the target from the east, where the patrol coverage appeared lighter but the currents were stronger. This route would require more precise navigation and greater physical exertion, but it offered the best chance of reaching their objective undetected. The revised approach worked perfectly, and Sarah and Kim successfully penetrated the harbor's security perimeter. They spent 2 hours gathering intelligence on ship movements and defensive positions before beginning their extraction. However, as they prepared to leave the target area, they noticed increased security activity that suggested their presence might have been detected. Rather than take chances with their original extraction route, Sarah made the decision to remain hidden near the harbor until dawn, when shift changes in the security force would create a window of opportunity. This choice meant spending several additional hours in cold water without proper thermal protection, but it significantly reduced the risk of capture during their escape. The extended mission was successful, with Sarah and Kim extracting safely after gathering valuable intelligence about enemy capabilities and defensive measures. However, the prolonged exposure to cold water had taken a toll on both divers, and they required medical evaluation upon their return to base.
During the medical check, Sarah was found to be suffering from mild hypothermia and exhaustion.
The corpsman recommended that she be placed on limited duty for several days to recover fully. However, Sarah was concerned that any time away from training could result in her falling behind her classmates or being dropped from the program.
"Doc, I'm fine," Sarah insisted as the medical team completed their evaluation. "I'd been cold and tired before. A hot shower and a good meal will fix me right up."
The senior corpsman was not convinced. "Lieutenant, your core body temperature is still below normal, and your cognitive function tests show signs of impairment from hypothermia. You need at least 48 hours of rest and monitoring." Sarah knew that arguing with medical personnel would only create more problems, but she was frustrated by what she saw as an unnecessary delay in her training. She had worked too hard to get this far and was unwilling to accept any setbacks that might jeopardize her chances of completing the program.
Lieutenant Commander Hayes intervened in the discussion, recognizing Sarah's concerns while supporting the medical team's recommendations.
"Mitchell, you're going on limited duty for 2 days, and that's final. Use the time to study for your upcoming examinations and review tactical procedures. Missing 2 days of physical training won't hurt you if you stay current with the academic material." The forced break actually proved beneficial, as Sarah was able to catch up on sleep and study materials that she had been rushing through due to the demanding training schedule. She also used the time to review video footage of her recent exercises, identifying areas where her performance could be improved. When Sarah returned to full training status, she found that her brief absence had not significantly impacted her standing in the class. If anything, her dedication to continuing her studies during the medical break had impressed the instructors and reinforced her reputation as a serious professional. The diving phase concluded with a comprehensive examination that tested both technical knowledge and practical skills. Sarah performed exceptionally well on all portions of the test, finishing second overall in her class and demonstrating mastery of all required underwater operations. Her success in this challenging phase of training had established her as one of the top candidates in the program. As the class prepared to move into the final phase of SEAL training, Sarah reflected on how much she had grown since those first difficult days. The respect of her classmates had been earned through consistent performance and unwavering commitment to excellence. The instructors now viewed her as a capable operator who could be trusted with the most demanding assignments. However, Sarah knew that the final phase of training would present new challenges that would test everything she had learned. Land warfare training would evaluate her ability to lead combat operations, master advanced weapons systems, and make critical decisions under the extreme stress of simulated battlefield conditions. The margin for error would be smaller than ever, and the consequences of failure more serious than anything she had faced so far. The final phase of SEAL training took place on San Clemente Island, a rugged piece of land 60 miles off the coast of California that served as a training ground for the most advanced special operations exercises. Sarah and her remaining classmates would spend 10 weeks learning land warfare tactics, advanced weapons systems, and small unit leadership skills that would prepare them for actual combat deployments.
Only 14 candidates remained from the original class of 43.
Each had proven their ability to handle extreme physical and mental stress, but the land warfare phase would test their capacity to think strategically while operating sophisticated military equipment under combat conditions. The training scenarios were designed to be as realistic as possible, using live ammunition and explosives to create an environment that closely simulated actual warfare. Master Chief Petty Officer Robert "Tank" Williams served as the senior instructor for land warfare training. Williams had completed 6 combat deployments in Afghanistan and Iraq, earning a Navy Cross for actions during a particularly fierce battle in Fallujah. His reputation for demanding excellence while maintaining the highest safety standards made him one of the most respected instructors in the SEAL community. During the initial briefing, Williams made it clear that the land warfare phase would require a different set of skills than anything the candidates had learned previously. "Up until now, you've been focused primarily on individual performance," he explained as the group gathered in a classroom overlooking the island's barren landscape. "From this point forward, everything will be about team leadership and tactical decision-making." Williams paused to study each candidate before continuing. "You will be evaluated on your ability to plan and execute complex operations, lead teams under fire, and adapt to changing battlefield conditions.
Some of you will discover that you have natural leadership abilities you never knew existed.
Others will find that individual excellence does not necessarily translate into effective command. The first week focused on weapons training and marksmanship skills. Sarah had always been proficient with standard military firearms, but SEAL operations required expertise with a much wider range of weapons systems. She learned to operate sniper rifles, machine guns, grenade launchers, and sophisticated targeting systems that could engage enemies at distances exceeding 1 mile. The marksmanship training took place on ranges scattered across San Clemente Island, each designed to simulate different combat environments. Sarah spent long days practicing precision shooting from various positions and distances, gradually developing the steady hands and keen eyesight necessary for effective sniper operations. Her natural athleticism and attention to detail served her well in this training, and she quickly emerged as one of the top marksmen in her class. Petty Officer Kim, who had been Sarah's partner during many diving exercises, struggled with the transition to land warfare training. The complex weapons systems and tactical procedures seemed to overwhelm him, and his performance began to decline noticeably. Sarah noticed his difficulties and began spending her free time helping him master the technical aspects of their new equipment.
"Kim, you're overthinking this," Sarah said one evening as they practiced disassembling and reassembling their rifles. "These weapons are just tools.
Once you understand the basic principles, everything else becomes routine." Kim nodded, but his frustration was evident.
"I don't know, Mitchell. Maybe I'm just not cut out for this part of the training.
Underwater operations made sense to me, but all these different weapons and tactical procedures, it's like learning a completely new language."
Sarah understood his frustration, having experienced similar feelings during her early weeks in the program. "Remember how you felt during your first week of diving training? Everything seemed impossible until you broke it down into smaller pieces. This is the same thing." Over the next several days, Sarah continued working with Kim during their limited free time.
She helped him develop memory techniques for remembering complex procedures and found ways to relate the new tactical concepts to diving operations he already understood. Her patient instruction gradually helped Kim regain his confidence and improve his performance. The second week introduced small unit tactics and patrol operations. Candidates learned to move through hostile terrain while maintaining communication with supporting forces and gathering intelligence about enemy positions. These exercises required careful coordination between team members and the ability to make quick decisions when plans did not work as expected. Sarah found herself naturally gravitating toward leadership roles during these exercises. Her classmates began looking to her for guidance during complex operations, and the instructors started assigning her positions of increased responsibility. This recognition was gratifying, but it also brought additional pressure to perform flawlessly in every situation. During one particularly challenging exercise, Sarah was assigned to lead a 6-person reconnaissance patrol deep into enemy territory. The mission required her team to gather intelligence about a simulated terrorist training camp while avoiding detection by enemy patrols and surveillance systems. Any contact with enemy forces would result in mission failure and could potentially compromise the safety of her team. The patrol began before dawn with Sarah leading her team through rocky terrain that provided good concealment but made movement slow and difficult. She used hand signals to communicate with her teammates, maintaining complete noise discipline as they approached their objective. The enemy camp was located in a valley surrounded by hills that offered excellent observation points but also created natural choke points that could become deadly if her team was discovered. Sarah positioned her team on a ridge overlooking the target area and began gathering detailed intelligence about enemy strength, equipment, and defensive positions. The information would be used to plan a larger operation involving multiple SEAL teams, so accuracy and completeness were critical to mission success. As her team completed their reconnaissance, Sarah noticed increased activity in the enemy camp that suggested they might have detected the presence of the patrol. Rather than risk discovery by remaining in position longer, she made the decision to extract immediately with the intelligence they had already gathered. The extraction proved more challenging than expected, as enemy patrols had begun searching the surrounding area. Sarah had to lead her team through a complex route that avoided known enemy positions while maintaining the rapid pace necessary to reach their pickup point on schedule.
The navigation required precise timing and careful observation of terrain features.
Halfway through their extraction route, Sarah's team encountered an enemy patrol that was not supposed to be in their area according to the intelligence briefing. The unexpected contact forced her to make an immediate decision about whether to engage the enemy, seek concealment, or find an alternate route around the obstacle. Sarah quickly assessed the situation and decided that engaging the enemy patrol would create too much risk of detection by other enemy forces in the area. Instead, she led her team to a concealed position and waited for the patrol to pass before continuing their extraction. The delay meant they would arrive at their pickup point several minutes behind schedule, but it avoided the complications that would result from a firefight. The exercise concluded successfully, with Sarah's team providing valuable intelligence without being detected by enemy forces. However, during the debrief session, some instructors questioned her decision to avoid contact with the enemy patrol rather than eliminate the threat to her mission. Master Chief Williams led the discussion, challenging Sarah to explain her tactical reasoning. "Mitchell, you had the firepower and position to eliminate that enemy patrol quickly and quietly. Why did you choose to hide instead of taking action?" Sarah considered her response carefully. "Master Chief, engaging that patrol would have required at least 2 minutes of contact time, even if everything went perfectly. That would have put us further behind schedule and increased the risk of detection by other enemy forces in the area. The intelligence we had already gathered was sufficient to accomplish our primary mission objectives." Williams nodded slowly. "And if that patrol had discovered your position while you were hiding? You would have been forced into a firefight anyway, but now you would be reacting to their initiative instead of controlling the engagement." "Yes, Master Chief, but the probability of discovery was much lower if we remained concealed than if we initiated contact. I assessed that the risks of engagement outweighed the potential benefits given our mission parameters." The debrief continued for another hour, with instructors and fellow candidates analyzing every aspect of the patrol operation. Sarah's tactical decisions were scrutinized in detail, but the overall consensus was that she had demonstrated sound judgment and effective leadership under pressure. As the land warfare training progressed, the exercises became increasingly complex and realistic. Sarah participated in simulated raids on terrorist compounds, hostage rescue operations, and direct action missions that required precise coordination between multiple teams. Each exercise tested different aspects of special operations capabilities and leadership skills. During a complex hostage rescue scenario, Sarah was assigned as the assault team leader responsible for breaching a building and securing hostages while other teams provided security and support. The operation required split-second timing and flawless execution, as any mistake could result in civilian casualties or mission failure. The target building was a 3-story structure with multiple rooms and staircases that provided numerous hiding places for enemy forces. Intelligence indicated that 6 hostages were being held on the second floor, guarded by an unknown number of terrorists with automatic weapons and explosive devices. Sarah spent several hours studying building plans and developing a detailed assault plan that would minimize risks to both hostages and her own team members. The operation would begin with a simultaneous breach of 3 different entry points, followed by a carefully coordinated sweep of each floor to neutralize enemy resistance and secure the hostages. As her team prepared for the assault, Sarah reviewed their plan one final time and made sure each member understood their specific responsibilities. The breach would require precise timing and immediate decisive action once they entered the building. There would be no opportunity to hesitate or reconsider their approach once the operation began. The assault commenced exactly as planned, with Sarah's team breaching their assigned entry point and immediately engaging enemy forces on the ground floor. The fighting was intense but brief, with her team using superior training and equipment to overwhelm the defenders quickly and efficiently. Sarah led her team up the stairs to the second floor, where they encountered heavier resistance from terrorists who were using the hostages as human shields. This situation required extreme precision and careful shot placement to neutralize the threats without endangering innocent civilians. Using advanced marksmanship skills developed during weeks of training, Sarah and her teammates were able to eliminate the terrorist guards while avoiding any harm to the hostages. The rescued civilians were quickly evacuated to safety while the team continued clearing the building to ensure no additional threats remained. The entire operation was completed in less than 8 minutes, meeting all mission objectives while maintaining the safety of both hostages and assault team members.
Sarah's leadership during the exercise was praised by instructors as an example of how proper planning and decisive execution could achieve success even in the most challenging circumstances. As the land warfare phase neared its conclusion, Sarah began to realize that she had not only survived one of the most demanding military training programs in the world, but had actually excelled in ways that exceeded her own expectations. The respect and confidence of her fellow candidates had been earned through consistent performance and unwavering dedication to excellence. The final exercise of the land warfare phase was a comprehensive field training exercise that lasted 72 hours and incorporated all the skills learned throughout the entire SEAL training program. Teams of candidates would conduct multiple operations including reconnaissance missions, direct action raids, and combat rescue operations while operating with minimal sleep and limited supplies. Sarah was selected as the overall mission commander for her group, responsible for coordinating the activities of 3 separate teams and ensuring that all objectives were accomplished within the assigned timeframe. This leadership position represented the ultimate test of her abilities and would largely determine her final standing in the training program. The exercise began with Sarah receiving a complex mission briefing that included multiple objectives scattered across San Clemente Island. Her forces would have to move rapidly between targets while maintaining operational security and avoiding detection by a sophisticated enemy force equipped with modern surveillance equipment. Over the next 3 days, Sarah demonstrated exceptional leadership and tactical expertise as she coordinated her teams through a series of challenging operations. Her ability to adapt to changing conditions and make critical decisions under pressure impressed both her fellow candidates and the instructor staff. When the final exercise concluded, Sarah and her remaining classmates had successfully completed one of the most rigorous military training programs in the world. They had proven their ability to operate effectively under extreme stress and had earned the right to join one of the most elite fighting forces ever assembled. The graduation ceremony took place on a Friday morning with families and senior military officials in attendance. As Sarah walked across the stage to receive her SEAL Trident pin, she thought about the long journey that had brought her to this moment and the challenges that still lay ahead in her military career. 2 years after graduating from SEAL training, Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell found herself deployed to Afghanistan with SEAL Team 7, conducting counter-terrorism operations in one of the most dangerous regions of the country. The transition from training to actual combat had tested every skill she had developed during her time at Coronado, and she had quickly established herself as one of the most effective operators in her unit. The forward operating base where Sarah was stationed sat in a valley surrounded by mountains that provided enemy forces with excellent observation and firing positions. Intelligence reports indicated that a high-value target was operating somewhere in the region, planning attacks against coalition forces and civilian populations. Sarah's team had been tasked with locating and capturing this individual before he could execute his next operation. Captain Robert Chen served as the team leader for SEAL Team 7, bringing 8 years of combat experience to their operations. Chen had initially harbored some doubts about having a female operator on his team, but Sarah's performance during their first few missions had quickly eliminated any concerns about her capabilities. She had proven herself to be both technically proficient and mentally tough under the extreme stress of combat operations. The intelligence briefing took place in a secure facility within the base perimeter, with Sarah and 5 other team members gathering around a table covered with satellite photographs and tactical maps. The target was identified as Ahmad Hassan, a former Afghan military officer who had joined the Taliban after the coalition invasion and was now believed to be coordinating attacks throughout the region. Hassan has been operating in this area for at least 6 months, Chen explained as he pointed to locations on the map where recent attacks had occurred. He's smart, experienced, and has significant local support. Previous attempts to locate him have failed because he changes locations frequently and uses multiple safe houses. The intelligence officer provided additional details about Hassan's known associates, communication methods, and operational patterns. The target typically moved at night using routes through the mountains that were difficult to monitor with surveillance equipment. Any operation to capture him would require precise timing and detailed knowledge of local terrain. Sarah studied the intelligence materials carefully, noting patterns in Hassan's movements that might provide opportunities for interception.
Her experience with navigation and tactical planning during SEAL training had prepared her well for this type of analysis, and she began developing ideas about how their team might successfully locate their target.
"Captain, what if we approach this differently?" Sarah suggested during the planning session. "Instead of trying to track Hassan directly, maybe we should focus on disrupting his support network. If we can make it difficult for him to use his safe houses and communication systems, he might be forced into a more predictable pattern."
Chen considered her suggestion.
"What do you have in mind, Mitchell?"
Sarah moved to the map and began outlining her proposal. Intelligence indicates that Hassan relies on a network of couriers to maintain communication with his operatives. If we can identify and monitor these couriers, we might be able to track them back to his current location. It would require patience and careful surveillance, but it could be more effective than trying to find him through random patrols.
The team spent the next several hours developing a detailed operation plan based on Sarah's concept.
They would establish observation posts near known courier routes and safe houses, gathering information about Hassan's network while waiting for an opportunity to track him directly. The operation would require several days of continuous surveillance and would test their ability to remain concealed in hostile territory. Preparation for the mission took 2 days, with Sarah and her teammates studying satellite imagery, rehearsing communication procedures, and testing specialized surveillance equipment. Each team member would be responsible for monitoring a different area, requiring them to operate independently while maintaining coordination with the overall operation. Sarah was assigned to establish an observation post on a ridge overlooking a village where intelligence suggested Hassan maintained one of his safe houses. The position offered excellent visibility but was also exposed to enemy observation and fire. She would have to remain concealed for up to 72 hours while gathering information about activities in the target area. The insertion took place during a moonless night, with Sarah and her teammate Petty Officer Rodriguez moving through rocky terrain to reach their observation post. The 2-mile approach required careful navigation through areas known to contain improvised explosive devices and enemy patrols.
Any mistake in route selection or noise discipline could compromise the entire operation.
Sarah and Rodriguez reached their position without incident and established a well-concealed observation post that provided clear views of the target village. They settled in for what might be a long wait, knowing that patience and attention to detail would be crucial to mission success.
The first day of surveillance revealed normal village activities with no obvious signs of terrorist operations.
Sarah carefully documented vehicle movements, personnel activities, and communication patterns while maintaining radio contact with other team members positioned around the region. The information they gathered would be analyzed to identify any unusual patterns that might indicate Hassan's presence. On the second day, Sarah noticed increased activity around one particular building in the village. Several individuals had arrived during the early morning hours, and there appeared to be some type of meeting taking place. The visitors included 2 men who matched descriptions of known Hassan associates, suggesting that they might have located their target. Sarah immediately reported her observations to Captain Chan and requested permission to move closer to the building for better surveillance. However, doing so would require leaving their concealed position and moving through open ground where they could be easily detected by enemy lookouts. "Negative, Mitchell," Chen's voice crackled through her radio earpiece. "Maintain your current position and continue observation.
We're getting similar reports from other positions. It looks like Hassan might be planning something significant." Over the next 6 hours, Sarah documented the arrival of additional personnel at the target building.
Her count reached 12 individuals, including several who appeared to be armed guards. The level of activity and security measures suggested that this was indeed a high-level meeting, possibly involving Hassan himself. As darkness fell, Sarah observed several vehicles preparing to leave the village. This presented the team with a critical decision point. They could attempt to track the departing vehicles to Hassan's next location, or they could try to intercept him while he was still in the village. Either option carried significant risks and would require immediate action. Captain Chen made the decision to attempt an interception, believing that this represented their best opportunity to capture Hassan before he disappeared again. Sarah and Rodriguez were ordered to move down from their observation post and establish a blocking position on the main road leading out of the village. The movement to the new position required Sarah to navigate through terrain that was partially exposed to observation from the village. She used natural cover and careful timing to avoid detection while reaching a location where she could effectively engage any vehicles attempting to leave the area. As Sarah settled into her new position, she observed 3 vehicles leaving the target building and moving toward her location. Intelligence had indicated that Hassan typically traveled in the middle vehicle of such convoys, protected by armed escorts in the lead and trailing vehicles. The convoy would reach her position in approximately 2 minutes. Captain Chen's voice came through her radio. "Mitchell, you are cleared to engage. Disable the lead vehicle and try to capture Hassan alive if possible. We'll move in to support once you initiate contact." Sarah took careful aim at the engine block of the lead vehicle, knowing that stopping the convoy without killing Hassan would require precise shot placement. She waited until the vehicle was within optimal range before squeezing the trigger, sending a high-velocity round into the engine compartment. The lead vehicle immediately stopped, blocking the road and preventing the other vehicles from continuing their escape. Armed men quickly exited all 3 vehicles and began returning fire in Sarah's direction, forcing her to seek better cover while maintaining observation of the convoy. The firefight lasted only a few minutes before Sarah's teammates arrived to provide support. The combination of superior training, equipment, and tactical positioning allowed them to quickly overwhelm Hassan's guards and secure the area. During the engagement, 2 enemy fighters were killed and 4 others were captured, including one individual who was later confirmed to be Ahmad Hassan. Hassan's capture represented a significant victory for coalition forces and dealt a serious blow to terrorist operations in the region. The intelligence gathered during his interrogation led to several additional successful operations and helped disrupt the enemy's communication and supply networks. Sarah's performance during the operation was recognized with a Bronze Star Medal for her tactical expertise and courage under fire. However, she was more proud of the fact that her team had successfully completed their mission without suffering any casualties. The operation demonstrated the effectiveness of careful planning, patient surveillance, and precise execution that had been emphasized throughout her SEAL training. Following Hassan's capture, Sarah participated in several additional operations that further established her reputation as an exceptionally capable special operator. Her success in combat validated the decision to allow women to serve in the SEALs and helped pave the way for other female candidates who would follow in her footsteps. The deployment to Afghanistan lasted 8 months, during which Sarah's team conducted dozens of successful operations against high-value targets throughout the region. She learned to adapt to constantly changing tactical situations and developed the quick decision-making skills that would serve her well throughout her military career. When Sarah finally returned to the United States, she was assigned to an advanced training unit where she helped prepare the next generation of SEAL candidates for their own combat deployments. The experience of training others forced her to articulate the lessons she had learned and helped her understand the broader significance of her own journey through the program. Many of the new candidates who arrived for training had heard stories about Sarah's achievements and were curious about her experiences as one of the first women to earn the SEAL Trident. She was careful to emphasize that her success had been based on the same qualities that made any operator effective: physical fitness, mental toughness, technical proficiency, and unwavering commitment to mission accomplishment. During one conversation with a group of female candidates who were just beginning their training, Sarah reflected on the changes that had occurred since her own time as a student. "The program hasn't gotten any easier," she told them. "If anything, the standards have gotten higher as we've learned more about what it takes to be effective in modern combat operations." She paused to look at each of the young women who had chosen to pursue this demanding career path. "What has changed is that you no longer have to prove that women belong here. That question has been answered. Now you just have to prove that you belong here, the same as every other candidate." Sarah's words carried the weight of hard-earned experience and reflected the transformation that had taken place within the SEAL community. The initial skepticism and resistance she had encountered as a pioneer had been replaced by acceptance and respect for any individual who could meet the demanding standards of the program. As Sarah continued her military career, she maintained the same standards of excellence that had carried her through training and combat. She was eventually promoted to lieutenant commander and assigned to increasingly responsible positions within naval special warfare. Her success opened doors for other women and helped establish new standards for what was possible in special operations. Looking back on her journey from that first day at the training compound in Coronado, Sarah recognized that her greatest achievement had not been proving that women could succeed in the SEALs. Instead, it had been demonstrating that excellence in special operations was not determined by gender, background, or physical size, but by character, determination, and unwavering commitment to mission accomplishment. The SEAL Trident pin that Sarah wore on her uniform represented more than personal achievement. It symbolized the breaking down of barriers that had once seemed insurmountable and the opening of new possibilities for future generations of warriors. Her story became an inspiration for anyone who had been told they could not achieve their goals, proving that determination and excellence could overcome even the most entrenched skepticism. Sarah Mitchell had not just earned her place among the elite, she had redefined what it meant to be elite and had shown that the most important battles are often fought not against external enemies, but against the limitations that others try to place on human potential. Her legacy would endure long after her own career had ended, inspiring others to pursue their own dreams of excellence regardless of the obstacles they might face along the way.